viewing us from the social media channels like your Facebook, your YouTube, a very good evening to you. And once again, welcome to this memorial lecture. Without wasting time, my name is Fezeka Komonye. I'll be the host and the only host for tonight. With us, we have Tatu Bishop Mbete, who is going to open the program with a short prayer. I'll now hand over to Tatu Bishop Mbete, who is going to lead us in prayer.
I'm reading from the first letter of Timothy, chapter 1. I read verse 18 to 19. Timothy 1, chapter 1, verse 18 to 19. I'm giving you these instructions, Timothy, in accordance with the prophecies made earlier about you, so that by following them, you may fight the good fight, holding faith and a good conscience. For our devotions this evening, in honor of our great leader, I want to say two things before I offer words to God. Holding faith and a good conscience. Paul said to Timothy, in order to fight a good fight, on one hand, you need to hold to faith as a shield. Have this attitude that when you fall, you will rise. We are celebrating today this great hero, our leader, Untitled MHLABA. And if we were to ask him again how he made it, he would have said, I had faith. Faith as a shield, but also faith as a launching pad. Great leaders, especially our great leaders, are known throughout the world as people of faith. So as we gather to honor Ray, I'm saying to all those who are leaders or aspire to be leaders, you will need something called faith. An attitude that says, it may be bad today, but tomorrow will be stronger than yesterday. That is the first thing that Paul is saying to Timothy. And that is the first thing in the name of God I celebrate about Ray. Esbini, Paul says, on the other hand, Timothy, if you want to be a great leader, you must hold a good conscience. Ngesixhosa kuthiwa sisazela esiphilileyo. An inner consciousness that makes a person aware of his or her motives. An inner consciousness of self-correction, self-righteousness, self-sacrifice, a good conscience. Paul even said to Timothy, there are many of your age who have wrecked their lives. Their lives have come to naught, to zero, simply because they lost this great gift called a good conscience. So, as we are about to bow before the Lord of heaven and earth, I'm saying it is critical, especially this time in our country, to remember that we will not get far if we are not a people who can hold on to faith, but hold on to this faith with a good conscience. This good conscience means I must refine myself. This is the legacy. He belonged to that group of leaders who had a good conscience, who would not be forced and be told to step down when they do wrong. Their conscience would voluntarily tell them that I must apologize, I must step back, so that those who are with me may not suffer because of my actions. I salute, therefore, in the name of God, this eagle, as a Bofol, one of the leaders who was exposed to the mysteries of leadership, a leader with a good conscience, a leader who had faith of vision for tomorrow. And to God be the glory. Let us now pray. Almighty God, to whom all our hearts are linked and our desires known, we pray that as we start this memorial annual lecture, you will cleanse the thinking of our minds so that we may perfectly serve you and worthily honor your mighty name. Jehovah is your name. They say you are mighty in war, you are great in battle. But we also know that you have been and you are still are our shepherd, our Lord, our King. Izalise idinga lakho, Thixo Nkosi wenyaniso. Lawula, usigcine, usikhokhele. Help us as this breed of leaders during this difficult moment to hold on to faith. Help us to swim across this river. Help us to revive our inner consciousness. Lord, we give you thanks for your departed Savior, servant, Untitled Chapter. We raise our hands and ask for a blessing upon his family. Continue to bless that home so that from that big tree, new shifts can emerge. Bless this province. Bless our nation, South Africa. Continue to guide and protect us. Save us. Be with us. Comfort us. Lead us. In the name of Christ, we offer this prayer and we give you this thanks. Amen.
Thank you very much, Tatu Bishop Umbete, for reminding us that Nangoku uThixo usengumalusi wethu. If you've just joined us, welcome to the 4th annual memorial lecture of Untitled Raymond MHLABA, the inaugural premier of the province of the Eastern Cape. Namhlanje ke ndizawusebenzisa isilungu kwakunye nesiXhosa because in our midst we have international guests that would be making inputs, a message from the Ugandan ambassador. So ndizawumane ndilumela ke. Kodwa ndiyafuna Honorable Speaker of the Provincial Legislature ndikhe ndikukhumbuze because ndiyakwazi uyasiva isiXhosa nangona unamagamanyana nje ambalwa okwazi uwathetha. Ndifuna ukukukhumbuza ukuba ngaphambi kokuba siqale iprogram sibonile umfanekiso omhle kwaNondyolo. Abantu bethe nqwadalala behleli bezobukela ukuba besinika nesidima ukuba senza ntoni ukukhumbula unyana wabo noye wazibandakanya kwezopolitiko waphuma izandla akazibandakanya waziwa kwaNondyolo Bhofolo kuphela wasiliqhayiya lesizwe sonke siyimpuma koloni sazingca ngaye. So siyanibulisa kwaNondyolo molweni eBhofolo, siyabulela kakhulu ngobukhona benu. Without you we would not have done this. Sibulela kakhulu. Ndingakhange ke ndidade lenzulwini kuba ndingathetha kutshona ilanga mna kodwa ndinikwe nje uxanduva lokuba ndikhombe izithethi. Ndicela ke ukuba ngabana if kukhona indlela esikwazi uqhwaba izandla ngayo, put our hands together for the Honorable Speaker of the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature, Honorable Helen Souls August, to give us the welcoming address.
Program Director, Bishop Lete, religious and traditional leaders, the MHLABA family and the community of Buffalo, members of the Executive Council, Premier of the Eastern Cape in absentia, members of the Provincial and National Speakers Forum that have joined us, all MPs and MPLs that have joined us this evening, our international guests, the presiding officers of our legislature and all legislatures as well as Parliament, our guest speaker, Honorable Thandi Modise. I greet you all in that wonderful name of our Savior. Amen. On behalf of the Executive Committee of the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature, let me take this opportunity to welcome you to the Raymond MHLABA Memorial Centennial Lecture. This lecture is one of our annual flagship events at the Provincial Legislature in which we reflect on the immense foundation laid by Ray, as he was affectionately known as the inaugural Premier of the Eastern Cape Province. This lecture is hosted jointly and in proud collaboration with the Eastern Cape Provincial Government led by our Premier Oscar Mabuyane and the MHLABA family. It was incumbent upon us as the Executive Committee of the Legislature in looking at and understanding the contribution of Ray to our freedom and democracy, befitting that we initially wanted to link this memorial lecture to the Human Rights Month during March, of which he was a staunch champion and ambassador throughout his life. COVID-19 could not derail the honor to be bestowed on this legend of the Eastern Cape, as today's lecture coincides with the month of his release from Robben Island 31 years ago, as well as being Red October month. I'm quite sure Ray is broadly smiling. We all know red was his favorite color. Distinguished guests, the theme for this centenary lecture reflects on the legacy of Dr. Raymond MHLABA in relation to good governance, accountability, and service delivery. Ray was elected by the members of the Eastern Cape Legislature in '94 to be the first Premier of the Eastern Cape, spent 25 years of his life in prison, along with other leaders of the ANC who were convicted in the Rivonia trial, such as Nelson Mandela, Governor Mbeki, Walter Sisulu, Dennis Goldberg, Andrew Mlangeni, and many others. A chapter of a generation that was sadly closed with the passing of Tata Andrew Mlangeni and Advocate George Bizos in July and September respectively. May their souls rest in peace. The first democratic provincial government led by Ray was tasked with an onerous responsibility of uniting and integrating an Eastern Cape that consisted of the former Ciskei and the Transkei Bantustans, or Quasi republics, as well as areas of the former Cape Province. The integration of these three distinct administrations from 3 distinct countries, so to speak, with different conditions of service, constitutional amendments, legislations, and the largest public service in the entire country. In his memoirs, true to his humble character, Ray had this to say of his contribution to this huge responsibility. I quote, "Even though people knew that the Eastern Cape government was in a state of collapse, we laid the foundations for a better administration. We brought stability to an unsettled civil service that was uncertain about its future." Close quote. This platform is used with the aim of strengthening public sector governance through a dialogue that reminds the people of our province about the selfless service of the people who sacrificed for the liberation and freedom of this country and seeks new partnerships for development and solidify accountability in our province. With these few words, I welcome everyone to this momentous occasion. God bless you. Thank you so much.
May God bless you too, Honorable Speaker. Thank you so much for the warm words of welcome. Indeed, we are here today to look back on the life and times of a revolutionary, a selfless cadre, a struggle icon, an intellect of the province of the Eastern Cape. Thank you so much for those wonderful words. I have indicated earlier on that we have people that are from international, from outside the borders of South Africa. But before I give them, I would like to call upon the Deputy Speaker of the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature to do the introductions and indicate who is in our midst. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members. I think I must now present the credentials of this important annual lecture. In our midst, honorable members, we do have the Honorable Speaker of the Provincial Legislature, Honorable Souls August, Honorable Lubabalo Mabuyana, the Premier of the Province of the Eastern Cape, the presiding officers of the National Assembly, and the presiding officers of the National Council of Provinces, members of the Executive Council of the Province of the Eastern Cape, members of Parliament have also joined, and members of the Provincial Legislature, as I indicated, Your Excellency, Ugandan Ambassador in South Africa, Provincial House of Traditional Leaders have been extended invitation, executive mayors and honorable speakers, as well as other members of council, chief whips, so to say, faith-based organizations, leaders of the political parties, labor unions, women formations, youth organization. Also, Honorable Chairperson, the university vice chancellors and TVET principals, TVET college principals are also here, provincial director general and the heads of departments, universities and TVET college students also, as well as a representative council of students, RAYMOND MHLABA family, and RAYMOND MHLABA and Dideka MHLABA Foundation, and other foundations that have already connected. Ladies and gentlemen are also present here, comrades and friends, including members of the media. Honorable Chairperson, I was also requested to make a presentation of our own guest speaker as well. If you allow me, I can indicate that officially the legislature extended an invitation to our leader, Ms Thandi Modise. Ms Modise is the current Speaker of the National Assembly in the 5th administration, and she was the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, NCOP, during the 5th term of Democratic Parliament. And she is the current Chancellor of Cape Peninsula University of Technology, a position she has held since September 2017. Ms Modise was the first elected to Parliament in 1994 and served as the chairperson of various and several parliamentary committees, such as Portfolio on Defense, the Joint Standing Committee on Defense, and Ad Hoc Committee for Rectification of the Convention to eliminate all forms of discrimination against women. She has also been the Speaker of the Northwest Provincial Legislature from 2004 to 2009, and the Premier of Northwest Province from 2010 to 2014. She has been the long history participation in the struggle for the freedom from apartheid, starting with 1976 student uprising. It includes the exile in Botswana, Angola, and the military training whilst in exile, as one of the tiny minority of women undergoing such training for the African National Congress. Ms. Modise serves as a member of the National Executive Committee and also serves as the deputy presiding as well as acting president. Deputy President and Acting President of the ANC Women's League. She was also the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC from 2007 to 2012, amongst other positions. But allow me, Chair, to also invite your indulgence to allow the Deputy Chair of Chairs just to present the family side. At least they are all connected by now. Thank you very much from my side. Thank you.
Over to you, Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs. Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, could you kindly unmute?
Program director.
Ungaqhuba, Honorable Duba, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. Greetings again. Yes, we're here at Kwananjola with members of the family and also the community of Bofolo. Amongst ourselves, I can say, amongst ourselves, we have Usisno, we have Usisno Malungelo, we have Utata Ungodwane, we have the whole family. Yabatata Umhlaba, Umpilo is here. Ukhona no Mava Ungodwane, ukhona no Matokazi Ungodwane, and the whole community. Yalapa Ekulelali Yakwanonjola. They are excited that the Raymond MHLABA municipality, together with the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature, have actually hosted and decided to come here and host them for this lecture. And also the executive mayor of Amatole, ukhona uKanyile ulapha phakathi, and also the executive mayor yase Raymond MHLABA municipality, uCouncillor Ukhetelo ukhona lapha phakathi. Ndiyabulela. Over to you, Program Director. Thank you very much.
And that's a very lovely gesture. Enkosi kakhulu. Uba uyakwazi, Honorable Tony, please switch off your mute yourself. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker, as well as the Honorable Deputy Chair of Chairs, for introducing the guests as well as members of the family. Without further ado, if you've just joined us on the social media or on the television channels, both the Mpuma Kapa TV as well as the parliamentary channel, welcome. We are still going ahead with the memorial lecture. The 4th annual Raymond MHLABA Memorial Lecture is organized by the province of the Eastern Cape. And my name is Fezeka. I will now hand over to His Excellency, the Ugandan Ambassador, Mr. Kintu Nyango to give us a few words and a perspective of who Tatu Omray was in terms of being an internationalist. Over to you, Honorable Kintu Nyango.
Thank you, Madam Master of Ceremonies, the Premier of the Eastern Cape, and the Speaker, all protocol observed. As the government of Uganda, we salute and recognize Ambassador Raymond MHLABA for the contribution, the immense contribution he made towards the attaining of freedom for South Africa. Given his social background, he is a source of inspiration to many. Also, President Mandela, his colleague President Mandela must have clearly had a high regard for his political and administrative skills. That's why we must have appointed him to become the first premier of a challenged and complex province, as described earlier on as the Eastern Cape, which he must have a role which clearly he must have done well. Furthermore, President Mandela also must have had an extremely high regard for Comrade MHLABA's diplomatic skills. That's why he must have appointed him to become South Africa's first High Commissioner to Uganda. Through that, the old man contributed tremendously in further uniting the governments of South Africa and Uganda and the people of South Africa and Uganda together. Those 30 or so years ago, I had the opportunity, I was privileged to have had the opportunity to have met him in person when he was the High Commissioner for South Africa to Uganda. And I was impressed by his simplicity and his keenness to learn more about what was going on in Uganda. So he's definitely an icon for the Eastern Cape, South Africa, and Africa. And I should possibly conclude by pointing out that the Eastern Cape has a long history with the people of Uganda. As you are aware, the first black university on the African continent, or in this part of the world, possibly not the entire African continent, but on this part of the world, East and Central Africa, was at Fort Hare University, was at Fort Hare in Alice. And many people from all over this region, say like President Mugabe, Mr. Joshua Nkomo, Sasadet Sekama, the father of King Muswati, he was the previous king of Swaziland, and many others studied here, including one of our former presidents, President Lule. He studied at Fort Hare, and many other people from Uganda came and studied at Fort Hare University. A number of the young men who came to study at Fort Hare University from Uganda even married wives from Alice, from Fort Hare, possibly in Alice. One of whom, Madame Pumla, became the grandmother of our current king, in where I come from in Uganda. She was called Pumla Sisonkole. Our husband was called Sisonkole. Another young man from Uganda married the daughter of Professor Jabavu, Mr. Rubogo. So we have a long attachment to the Eastern Cape and South Africa, and through this memorial lecture, I wanted to convey that message. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nyango. I certainly would want to investigate whether the negotiations were done very well. I have a keen interest on reopening the negotiations. It would seem we really have a long history of relations between the Eastern Cape and Uganda. And thank you so much for your words. A man of first, indeed, the first High Commissioner of South Africa to Uganda, the first Premier to the province of the Eastern Cape, an icon, none other than Utatu Raymond MHLABA. We are truly blessed that you were able to just tell us who he was and the immense contribution he has made in the leadership and the acquisition of independence in that country. Thank you so much for your words. And earlier on, Umtungwa, Honorable Koboshiane, told us ukuba ngubani uguest speaker wanamhlanje. And yabona ke xa ngoku wena ungumntana ufike umkhulwa wakho sele ebethe zonke intonga wabacacisela abantu ba kubani lo uzosixelela ngobomi bukatatu uRaymond MHLABA namhlanje. Into eshiyekileyo nje kuba mna ndinicele that you may put your hands together and give us a big round of applause for the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, imbokodo ngokwayo Ms Thandi Modise. Xa isegqibile ndizabuya ndithi order. Over to you, Honorable Modise.
Thank you very much. Indeed, I must pay my respect to the family of Tatua Omrey. I must pay my respect and gratitude to you, Speaker and Premier of the Eastern Cape, for having invited me to participate in this very important day, to remember a moment in the life of one Raymond MHLABA. Speakers of the provinces, all other presiding officers present, honorable members, Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Uganda to South Africa, ladies and gentlemen, I am really honored to have time to speak about Comrade Ray. To understand Ray, one is forced to step back in the history of his province, in the history of the region from which he was born. We do know that the lives of the people, the ordering of the familial and community priorities, importance of culture and values, the importance of the people of that region was the oneness with the land. So Comrade Ray is born in an area where the land and the people were inseparable. The arrival of the ships, starting with Bartholomew Dias, who discovered us, the 3 Dutch ships which brought up on our shores, the Huguenots, the British, received with African warmth, which we are living to regret, changed the lives of the natives of this country. Honorable members, life as we knew it was intermixed, connected with our land. The land gave us life. With every step that we took, every mile that we walked out of our own communities into the next communities, we gained friends, we gained knowledge. With every piece of bartered goods, intermarriages, and the occasional quarrels between neighbors and communities, that was not common, made us stronger in our cultures, in our beliefs, in our values as African people in this part of the world. We do know that the discovery of gold and diamonds started and whetted the appetite of those who were to then have this will and the might to start taking away our land, forcing our fathers into subjugation, creating this cheap labor reservoir. We do know that that began to change lives as we knew it. We do know that what had been our affinity and our love of living off our land became a thing of the past as our bartering system was changed into a catch, a life which we were not familiar with. We do know that this forced our fathers to leave the lands, to leave the land, to leave agriculture, to leave the animals, to leave families, importantly, to go emakhueni, to go in the railways, to go into the mining, to be able to live with this new system introduced by these people who came to discover us. So it was good that Africans were accommodating. It was not good that African families began to be destroyed. And we do know that this history of South Africa, especially of the Eastern Cape, that it was not just a history that was accepted. We do know that there was a lot of resistance. We do know that the frontier wars were fought fiercely in the period that Omrey was born into. Now, those frontier laws, those laws that were imposed without our participation, reduced the daughters and sons of that region of the Eastern Cape into hewers of wood and drawers of water. When the Europeans took over, we see a change in our culture. We welcome that they brought in education, and we welcome the fact that when Omrey is born on the 12th of February in 1920 at Mazoka village in Fort Beaufort, his family was living, surviving on subsistence farming. We noticed that when they changed the system, that the father to Omrey had to leave, go and find a job to ensure that the family continues to exist in the dignity which they were used to. Mphakamisi Mhlaba was the only surviving son of the family, so he had to become both head boy and work the fields after his family, his father left for the mines. His sisters had to draw water, had to collect wood, had to do all the other chores. The mother was not left unscathed. She had to make sure that the food was on the table. Now we also look at how the chores are organized even in that period. Later discussions, sitting elsewhere, Omrey was to say that in fact, even the division of the chores at that time defined how the households changed, because they tended to extend and perpetuate patriarchal chauvinism, which we know still dominates our society today. Later on in his life, Omrey was to start the first fight to resist and to fight against the oppression of women. And for that, we have always been proud of Omrey, out on issues which he thought were sexist, and that he would try and do what he thought was right to be done. We also acknowledge that Omrey grew up in a very religious family. We are told that they did not miss church any Sunday. So when he started school, he was taken to the missionary schools. We also know that at that time when education was important and all of us realized that we needed to understand what this education was bringing, the educators were mostly the missionaries, and they prepared youth sometimes to accept the so-called new civilization. We also knew that education for these missionaries, the native, was a direct nexus of promoting the Christian gospel and the erosion of the African culture. We've seen this, honorable members, repeated when the youth of 1976 started fighting. We saw it in the late 80s when there was deliberate promotion of gospel and religion amongst the Africans as a diversion for us to be defocused from what we needed to do, young people of this country. But Omre went to school, he progressed well. He recalled an incident when the principal at some point, he was given a choice of subjects and he chose to say that he didn't really want to do scriptures. And he was told in no uncertain terms that he did not have a choice. This was a missionary school and religious instruction was a compulsory subject. Omre accepted that he was in circumstances that needed him to stay in school because the betterment of the family and of the community depended on what little education you could get, even if it meant doing religious studies against his will. So he stayed in school at Hilton. He accepted the reality of his time. He was also to say later on that he did understand that religion was used to perpetuate the process of social political engineering, which was intended to subordinate the African race to the European settlers. Omre also acknowledged that his political consciousness grew and was boosted by Utatu Sigila, who was a teacher from Nxeko, who used to organize the students from Hilton, from Alice, and from Fort Beaufort. Utatu Sigila explained to Bo Omre, Basasebangan, how the land was being taken away, dedicated his life and his student years too. And coming back to people, the affinity of the African people and their land being restored, the dignity of the African person, the idea that my identity is linked to my piece of land and my history cannot be taken from that piece of land. Now, Karl Marx in the 18th Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte says, and I quote, that men make their own history, but they do not make it as they please. They do not make it under self-selected circumstances, but under the circumstances existing already, given and transmitted from the past. Now, that talks to who Raymond MHLABA was, a man and his comrades, who are no exceptions to these sentiments. They accepted that they could not change the past. They accepted that there was a future for Africa. They accepted that they must work within the conditions which are applied for them, make sure that the shackles of apartheid were kicked off. They accepted that conquest, dispossession, and the obliteration of our cultures, our identities, were the circumstances we find ourselves in. It was therefore not surprising when Raymond MHLABA dropped out of school to join his father in seeking a job. He understood that he could stay in school and the family could go under. He understood that his father could not manage to look after everybody all by himself. But he also understood that what little education he had was not going to help him to liberate the family woes and the national woes. So he found a job at the Nanushi dry cleaners to do laundry, to iron, and to dry clean. It is ironic that this man who grows up from where he's defined chores as a man, a young man, to head is to work the land, takes a job and works in what in South Africa then and now is defined as a woman's job. And perhaps that is why in all his adult life, he was against sexism because he understood. But he did not just join Nanushi because he wanted a job. Within weeks of joining that dry cleaners, Ray was going against the law. Then the law was saying that the 1924 Conciliation Act was saying that natives, Africans, cannot become trade union members. Ray knowingly and illegally joined the trade union there. He, we are told, continued to recruit and to work and ended up actually being the recruiting officer of the union he had joined illegally. He worked with his comrades, Abu Gladstone Chume, Clifford Dladla, or Sam Ntunja, to actively work for the recognition of Africans as full trade union members. He attended union meetings regularly, as I said, and they continued to recruit and to encourage other Africans to defy the laws, to join the trade unions, to work to ensure that these jobs that we were thrust on, these jobs that were not of our liking, but we took as Africans for survival, at least afforded us some dignity and some respect in the process. So we see that Ray was not averse even from youth to defy. He went on, we know, that to join the Communist Party. An African led from the rural Transkei joins the Communist Party. At that time, it meant that even in his youth, Ray was alive and clear that non-racialism was the aim, that people were equal. It didn't matter what pigmentation and texture of the hair was. And therefore, Ray becomes, in 1946, a member of a branch. He becomes the secretary of the branch of the Communist Party in Port Elizabeth. He sits there. He's in the trade union movement. He's a member of the Communist Party of South Africa. We are told that then the ANC Youth League comes into being. And Ray is attracted to the energy that ANC Youth League put. That is the ANC Youth League that drove Ray to say, I will give the African National Congress a chance. He did not go and join the ANC because the ANC had been there all along. It was the energy that attracted him that came out of the Youth League to join the ANC. I therefore say to you, Honorable Mlibo, Deputy Speaker of the province in the Eastern Cape, what would Ray say today about the energies that we need to see flowing from the Youth League, flowing from the youth of our country, forcing all of us to march into line to ensure that a future of this country, of the children yet unborn, is secured? Ray joined and mobilized. Once he joined the ANC Youth League, he did not look back. He, we are told, chaired the Eastern Cape Bus Boycott Action Committee in the late 40s. We also know that he became the volunteer-in-chief of the Port Elizabeth during the 1952 Defiance Campaign. For Ray, it was never about a position or a paycheck. It was all about getting the right vehicle to emancipate his people. So whatever it is that we want to say about Raymond MHLABA, we must always remember that this was a man who did not raise his hand to become Premier of the Eastern Cape. This was a man who is given an order, goes in, does what he needs to do as honestly as possible. This is the man who, in the words of Frantz Fanon, identifies his mission in life, fulfills it, and makes sure he does not betray it, whatever the circumstances. So Omray and his comrades discovered their mission and they pursued that mission. It was Omray, Dennis Goldberg, Ukhethi, or Tatu Madiba, or OR, or Sisulu, who were determined never to give up. It was Borrey who kept us going when the negotiations were tough. They were stoic, they were stubborn, they did not panic. And therefore, Tina, Abantwana Babo, in this day and order, we will not panic because there is COVID. We will not panic because we are getting derailed with all the side shows that are happening in South Africa. We will not shake because we are confronted with corruption within the state and in the private sector. We will put our heads down. We will not flinch. We will fight because that is what they did. We will not fight today, face our circumstances as they did, because it is not about us. It is about those that will come before us. We will face our circumstances today because we have written laws. We have even laws that sound like they are liberating us. We joined the National Army and we rewrote the text of this country to suit all of us. We accepted and we accommodate all complexions and voices and identities. We have recovered some dignity. We have panel beaten some national identity. We are trying to build a nation in order and in honor of Omray and his comrades. But we must indeed build a nation that is proud to look squarely into what is coming in the future, a nation that will bequeath children unborn of a proud legacy of their forefathers, Bo Omray, a nation that will sing praises to its mothers who are gone to the land beyond. Honorable members, we hold the levers of power, but the land is not back. The values are being eroded daily. We stand by and we watch. We fight the patriarchy which Omray fought in his youth, but it seems to be threatening to overwhelm us. Omray's greatest fear was the misdirection of the resources from the poor and the deserving into the pockets of others. And we know this is staring us in the face. So what do we say to Raymond MHLABA? Do we tell him that his movement, this one that he ran to, this one that he was proud to put his energies in, is a shadow of itself? Do we say to Omray, that which you started fighting for, the return of the land, we are procrastinating in making sure that we deliver on? Do we say to Omray, we are facing gender-based violence and femicide, and that we don't know what to do? What do we say to Omray when we waste state resources, when the poor have nothing to eat. So we need to do something about this. We need to think. We need to claw back. We need to retrace our steps. We must remember that we exist as public representatives because the people voted. We must remember the cries, the strength of South Africans, even as Bo Omrey went to Robben Island and we did not know they would come out alive. We must remember the hope they gave to the people. We must remember the jubilations in the streets of South Africa when this cohort came out of jail and continued to fight. And therefore, if there is any message we must take back today, not to shame the Rivonia trialist and Tatu Ray Mhlaba in their graves. Is not to betray the trust they put in our hands as the generations that followed them. Is to ensure that that which they sacrifice so much on, we deliver on. Honorable members, I think we must not shame Raymond Mhlaba. We must keep the name of our first democratic premier of the Eastern Cape as a beacon to our young people to follow. We must make sure that the sense of time keep the footsteps of Raymond Mhlaba shining for us to follow forever. I think that that would be the biggest tribute we might give to our father. I think that rather than be happy where they are lying to watch the Zondo Commission, we are shaming them. I think that it is not too late for any people to find themselves again and to march in the footsteps of their foremothers and their forefathers. I thank you for the honor to say this little bit that I want to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for a wonderful memorial lecture and a tribute to a legendary son of the soil, one of our own, Utatu Raymond Mhlaba. Begging questions indeed, one of them, would he be happy if he finds us appearing before Zondo Commission? Would he be proud if he was to witness what happened yesterday when the workers of South Africa took to the streets fighting still for amalungelo abo? And yesterday, basically, Honorable Tony Duba, in the interview we held, Utatu Raymond Mhlaba was a trade unionist. Uchilo nawo kuba he had to leave ubuntwana bakhe and go help the family. Kwafuneka yolwela amalungelo omama. Something ngoku esibonayo thina ingasekho amalungelo abantu abangomama yanyashwa, and every day siva iziganeko ezibi ezenzeka ebantwini abangomama. Certainly we ought to change and sisike igqabi and a pattern from ubomi bukatata uOmrey Mhlaba nezinye iRivonia trialists. Siyabulela kakhulu ngamazwi akho. Indeed kuyabonakala uba he was a selfless leader, as you have indicated. Of the 85 years he lived, he spent 25 years in jail. And most of his time uyidedicatele ekulweleni amalungelo abantu engajonganga impilo yakhe. Siyabulela kakhulu for your time. We certainly are honored that you were available to give us this lecture so that even the future generation can learn ukubutatu Raymond Mhlaba wayengubani. And ngubani omnye obenosinika inkcazelo entle ngolu hlobo ngaphandle komuntu naye olandele ezinyathelweni zotata uOmrey wayolala kwi-trenches ezabalazela ilizwe eli laseMzantsi Afrika. Siyabulela kakhulu, siyaliqaphela igalelo lenu Zimbokodo, ingakumbi thina siselulutsha. Andilolutsha ncam ke, sendibumdadlanyana. Kukhona into endiyicingayo ngoku ngaphambi kokuba ndinikele ezi zithethi ezilandelayo zizothi qabaqaba. Okokuqala mandithathe lithuba ndi-indicate ukuba besifumene umyalezo ochazayo ukuba the Honorable Premier is held up in the government Lekgotla that was scheduled to end at 6 and it could not finish. He is still held up, and therefore Honorable Mata is going to stand in on behalf of Honorable Premier. Kuyaziwa kapha ephondweni ukuba ndimcelile nje uHonorable Mata, kungenjalo into yam leya yo-actor Honorable Premier xa ingekho idla ngonikwa mna laa nto kuba bengazokwazi uthwala ikepusi ezininzi the program director and the acting premier. So yeah, ndiyamncazela uHonorable Mata namhlanje. Nise-right kwanondyolo? Mhlambi basazama u-unmute. Okay, very good. Very good. Thank you so much. Siyabulela kakhulu xa nise-right apho. Ndicela ukuba ngabana ke sigqithele kwizithethi ezilandelayo. Bekuchaziwe ke apha ukuba in our midst we have a representative of TVET colleges. Eyona nto ibalulekileyo ke namhlanje, beside ukufunda ngobomi bukatata Raymond Mhlaba with respect to accountability, governance, as well as service delivery, sifuna ukukhumbula ukuba singayitshintsha njani thina ubomi babantu, sitshintshe ne-image le yephondo ukwenzela into yobana siqhubekeke nokwaziwa njengekhaya lengqwele. So today we have invited institutions to make commitments ukuba kuzawutshintsha ntoni kwezi ndawo bakuzo. So ndizawuqala ke ngoku ndibize ezo zithethi ukuba zize ngaphambili. Can I now call upon Mr. Luvuyo Ngubelanga, who is a representative of TVET colleges. Kuthiwa ke nguye ongamele zonke i-TVET colleges ezilapha eMpuma Koloni ukuba eze ngaphambili azokusinika ii-commitments ze-TVET colleges. Ngokeza pha ngaphambili, I am just thinking uba kuthiwa utata Omre ngeli xesha ebengupremier, ndizawuthi ke kuthiwa because ndikhula ngoku sele ngasekho, kuthiwa ngeli xesha ebengupremier wayebhale i-speech sesilungu. So kwakhona elinye igama elingu-characteristics. Hayi ke umuntu omdala kuba ebesegugile ngokwangupremier uyaqalisa ke sondela tatam, uyaqalisa ke uyathetha xa efika phaa ku-characteristics athi kha zangade amgqibe ku-characteristics. And I think ke mhlawumbi zezinye izinto esingamkhumbula ngazo ukuba wayengumntu okwaziyo ukusihlekisa ngamanye amaxesha. Over to you, Mr. Ngubelanga.
Program Director, Honorable Speaker from the National Assembly, Honorable Ms Thandi Modise, Honorable Member from the National Assembly and the NCOP, the Premier of the province, and all the MSs, our host, Honorable Speaker of the Provincial Legislature, and the Deputy Speaker of the Provincial Legislature, all invited important guests. Mine is just only to read the commitment which we have drafted after we felt really honored by being identified by the Provincial Legislature as one of the critical stakeholders as the Department of Higher Education and Training, Eastern Cape Region, to partner with the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature. This commitment is made between the Department of Higher Education and Training, Eastern Cape Region, and the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature on the occasion of the 4th annual RAYMOND MHLABA Memorial Lecture with effect from the 1st of October 2020. On behalf of the department, I, Regional Manager, hereby commit to work with the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature and other critical stakeholders to improve the quality of lives of all the people of the Eastern Cape through the following: good governance. The TVET colleges of the Eastern Cape uphold the practice of good governance. Thus, we ensure that our college council, which plays a role in the governance of these institutions, are all vetted. Don't just simply pick up anyone. They are taken through the process of training and induction because we want them to understand very well their roles and responsibilities. This is as stipulated in the CET Act number 16 of 2006 as amended. We uphold the TVET colleges of the Eastern Cape will ensure that both college council and management will enforce ethical leadership as it advances the same values that our institution stands for. In the space of accountability, our TVET colleges are public institutions that remain accountable to government and the communities that we serve. I'm not clear. Sorry. And the institutions that we serve. In colleges, we establish important structures to improve the policy regime, the regulations, so as to ensure that our institutions are accountable and they can be tracked. In the space of excellence, the TVET colleges are working hard to become institutions of choice through the excellent work that we are required to perform. Through the excellent work that we perform, so as to ensure that our institution.
So, but Mlandu, Mr. Mlandu, thank you.
Sorry for that. Yes. Okay. The TVET colleges are working hard to become institutions of choice through the excellent work that we perform and in pursuit of responsiveness through the programs that we offer. In terms of the service delivery, we shall endeavor to enable the students to acquire the necessary knowledge, practical skills, applied vocational and occupational competences. TVET colleges remain committed to provide students with the necessary attributes required for employment, entry levels to particular vocational occupation, trade, and entry to higher education institution. In the space of zero tolerance against corruption, the TVET colleges will not tolerate any act of corruption. Thus, the colleges are required to strengthen their audit and risk management processes and structures and internal controls. In all cases of corruption, due legal processes will have to be followed to ensure that such acts are uprooted from the system. In accelerating the zero tolerance towards gender-based violence, gender-based violence in any of the college sites remains a serious unacceptable behavior. Policies and programs are getting developed by all the institutions to ensure that such practices are completely eradicated in our college environments. In conclusion, I commit that the TVET colleges of the Eastern Cape region support this important initiative that has been set up by the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature. This platform will bring a special opportunity for the TVET colleges of the Eastern Cape that are located in all the districts of the Eastern Cape province to be more responsive in the economic needs of the Eastern Cape and find it easy to participate in the development programs, in the district development programs that are unfolding in the district as pronounced by the president of the country. The values that are clearly stated in this statement of commitment will be adhered to by all the TVET colleges of the Eastern Cape at all times. I thank you, Program Director. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Tuba, for that one round of applause. If you've just joined us, we are live from MS Teams. The Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature is holding the 4th annual memorial lecture of Dr. Raymond MHLABA in the parliamentary channel as well as Pumakapa TV, 22 community radio stations, YouTube, social media like Facebook and Twitter. Do feel welcome. We are talking about the life and times of Dr. Raymond MHLABA in relation to good governance, accountability, and service delivery. We are now moving on. Ms Thandi Modise earlier on made an indication that Ray granted because usuka kwela cala la Kopofolo, close to Etikeni. In his life, uye waba nobudlelwane namaKrestu because he went to a missionary school. Bebengasindi ke le leadership yaqala apha kulento incendayo ebuKrestwini. Even though abanye babo later on became leaders of the South African Communist Party. So utata Omreke naye usidlulile kula nto yoba aphawulwe ngokwasenkonzweni. Masinikele ke the chairperson of the Eastern Cape Provincial Council of Churches, utata Reverend Lulama Njengwa, merely faith-based organizations ukuba eze ngaphambili. Une-3 minutes ke tatam. I-members ze-opposition ke apha sizinika imizuzu embalwa kodwa ndithi uyi-opposition.
Thank you, Program Director, our guest speaker, international speaker, members of the legislature, the House, and my colleagues, all those that are in the program. I greet you. This commitment is made between the South African Council of Churches, This commitment is made between the South African Council of Churches, Eastern Cape, leading the faith-based organization, and the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature on the occasion of the 4th Raymond MHLABA Memorial Lecture with effect from 8th October 2020. On behalf of the South African Council of Churches, I, Lulama Mtanjeswan Chengwa, the chairperson of the South African Council of Churches in the Eastern Cape, hereby commits to work with the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature and other critical stakeholders to improve the quality of life of all the people in the Eastern Cape through the following: good governance. As the Fellowship of Churches, we continue to encourage member churches for this good governance. Ethical leadership, we continue to engage and nurture our church leaders to become indeed ethical leaders. And of course, church leaders are elected by their members, and therefore it's important that they account to their constituency. And of course, in terms of excellence, you hear that we are supporting the historical schools so that they go back to their glory of being centers of excellence. And service delivery will continue to support the government and communities to deal with the issue of service delivery. And of course, on corruption, the SACC has got what is called Ethical and Good Governance and Clean Governance Subcommittee led by Bishop Zipuga, which deals, among other things, the issue of tolerance. And same in terms of gender-based violence, we have the subcommittee that is actually dealing head-on with gender-based violence. As part of, in conclusion, as part of a 5-year pilot project in supporting historical schools to be restored as centers of excellence, we announced on the 25th of September 2020, during the Provincial Heritage Day, which unveiled the memorial stone of Reverend Canon James Arthur Kalate at St. Matthew's Anglican Church, where he was a priest, that the SACC Eastern Cape will be focusing on Raymond MHLABA municipality because of Hilltown, where Dr. Mandela passed his senior certificate. But we also announced that we will be focusing on Ray's life because he was baptized at Holy Trinity Anglican Church, Wanonjola, Port Beaufort. As the church, therefore, will have a moral obligation to uphold his legacy. This is our commitment. The SACC Eastern Cape would like to thank the MHLABA family to continue to guard Ray's legacy and family values to be the source of courage to one another. His smile, his loud laughter will always be in our memories. God bless. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mtanjiswa. kuyacaca wena Paolo uqhela ipulpit ufika kwafuneka ndimuvele nje nam ndive ngobhele wakokwabo uba uqhelene nepulpit kufuneka uba mane umbhekelisa uba bhekela nantsika ayopulpit le yipodium le. Enkosi kakhulu Mthanjiswa. Indeed, I have been privileged over the past few weeks to have been working noNantanda Kuphakanyiswa bobabini utata uBhele lo besuka apha ongutata uNtshingwa kwakunye notata uBhele lo oyinkosi ozawuza apha azothetha on behalf of the House of Traditional Leadership. Apha ePhondweni ke we have a House of Traditional Leadership that is currently headed by the acting chairperson Chief Langa Mavuso ozosichazela nje naye kabanzi ukuba ngabana indlu yobukhosi is committer entweni kule nto sifuna uyenza yokuba sisike ipattern ebomini bukatata Raymond Mhlaba. Over to you, Bawubhele. Enkosi kakhulu.
Program Director, our international guest, Speaker of the National Assembly, urhulumente wonke bethuna okhoyo lo memorial lecture namhlanje. On this occasion of the 4th memorial lecture of Tata Raymond Mhlaba, I, Langa Mavuso, wish to commit the Eastern Cape House of Traditional Leaders to good governance. We commit to adopting a good governance agenda by establishing mechanisms of reviews by the communities itself, both at level of the provincial house and the local houses, in order to self-correct and continuously improve. Zero tolerance on corruption. The House notes with concern how pervasive corruption is, particularly in the public sector, which we view as a grave threat to the very sustainability of our hard-earned democracy. We commit an uncompromising fight against corruption in all of its forms, accelerating zero tolerance towards gender-based violence. The House is deeply concerned with the proliferation of gender-based violence in South Africa, particularly in the province. The House condemns the senseless gender-based killings in the strongest terms and will continue to advocate for speedy judicial processing of these criminal cases and for the harshest sentences to the perpetrators. Our Committee on Social Development is committed to continue its advocacy role on the promotion of sexual reproductive health rights and the protection of the elderly. On social cohesion, to the extent that resolving these claims and disputes contributes to social cohesion, the House plays a critical role on the resolution of claims and disputes within the institution of traditional leadership. The House, through the ad hoc committees on claims on dispute, pledges this commitment to the judicious and timely resolution of submitted claims and disputes. I thank you.
Ndicela nimphe izandla umntanikazi. Enkosi kakhulu. Siyabulela Bhele, and some of us who from time to time are tasked into yobana simane sisondela phaa kulaa ndlu yenkosi, siyayiqonda ukuba ayizozithembiso nje abazenza kuba bekule podium ezi. Sinobudlelwane obuhle kakhulu nabo, siyasebenzisana. Andixhela ibhulukhwe xa ndisiya phayana kwindlu yenkosi, ndithwala neqhiye. Umtshakazi uyathwala phaa kulaa ndlu yenkosi. So siyabulela kakhulu ngamazwi wakho nee-commitments ezenziwayo. Sizawugqithela ngaphambili ke ngoku sinikele urhulumente wasemakhaya ukuba enze isibhambathiso naye ukuba usuka ngoku ubheka phambili into engcono abazawukwazi uba bayenze ukuhlonipha nokuwonga inkulumbuso yephondo laseMpuma Koloni yokuqala uTata Raymond MHLABA. We are now crossing live to uTata Mxolisi Koyo, a Speaker of the District Council of Chris Hani, who is the chairperson of the SALGA in the province of the Eastern Cape. Honorable Koyo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Program Director, who is the chairperson of the proceedings. The protocol, as outlined by yourself at the beginning of the interaction, this is the commitment which is made between the South African Local Government Association on behalf of local government fraternity and the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature on this very, very important gathering of the 4th memorial lecture of uTata Raymond MHLABA on the 8th of October 2020. The Republic of South African Constitution, Section 152, on the objects of local government, also the white paper on local government, as well as the core mandate of South African local government, SALGA, enjoins us to gladly accept the commitments here under, as they resonate well with what local government must be busy with. The commitment itself, Program Director, on behalf of local government fraternity and the South African Local Government Association, I, Mxolisi Koyo, the provincial chairperson, hereby commit all the 39 municipalities to work with the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature and other stakeholders to improve the quality of life of all the people of the Eastern Cape by deepening local government democracy. That is allowing the majority of people to have a say in their activities. Building the cadre of the servant in terms of the ethical leadership, we pledge to build ethical and effective leaders, drawing on the values of integrity, competence, responsibility, accountability, fairness, and transparency. On the area of professionalization of local government and striving for excellence, we commit to preserve and protect the reputation of local government whilst maintaining its autonomy. On the area of service delivery, we are committing effective service delivery towards a better life for all. We aspire to achieve with greater efficiency and in the shortest possible time the delivery of every government service rendered to our communities. In terms of promoting clean governance, we are committing all the local municipalities in the area of Eastern Cape to promote clean administration and zero tolerance to corruption, fraud, and theft. As the voice of local government, we are concerned by the increasing levels of corruption and corruption incidents, and we also add our voice to those of the like-minded voices that corruption is stealing from the poor and it must come to an end. We support the work of law enforcement agencies in efforts to uproot corruption in our sector and government in general. Program Director, we also commit in accelerating zero tolerance in terms of GBV, gender-based violence and femicide. As the representative body of municipalities in South Africa, we have reorganized and also recognized that violence against women and children is the manifestation of a profound lack of respect, a failure by us to recognize the inherent inequality and dignity of women and children. And that is the violation of their fundamental human rights. And we are saying enough is enough. When we wind up in terms of our commitments, it is our collective view and in the interest of the general good that in order for government and all the levels to succeed on given mandate, cooperation, partnership, and collaboration, it is essential between governments, communities, and private sector that we stick to those commitments. This lecture should serve as a revival and the source of inspiration, drawing from what Ray would have said of our time. As once he said, the first rule of engagement as the leader is the people. Always fight to change the status quo if it does not favor the majority. Long live the spirit of Ray, long live. Thank you very much, Program Director. That is the commitment from SALGA.
Unmuted, my darling. Now you are muted, Honorable MEC. You are muted.
Thank you so much, Honorable Benjamin. Ben Bulela Njeku, Honorable Koyo, for the commitments that he has made, and also made an indication that we are remembering that Ray MHLABA with respect to accountability. And these commitments are made publicly. So it is incumbent upon abantu basekhaleni uba baqinisekise uba all these institutions are held accountable ngezi commitments bazenzayo ngale mini namhlanje. Mna ke sendiphelelwe lixesha lokuthethwa bendisikelwe i-10 minutes for iprogram yonke ukuba ngabana ndithethe nje ndicuceze la 10 minutes. Ngoku inoba ndizawuzifundisa ukusayina in ke ngoku izithethe ezilandelayo kuba elami ixesha liphelile ngoku. Kodwa ke okona kubalulekileyo kakhulu kukuba nanjengenkulumbuso yokuqala yephondo uTata Raymond MHLABA wayestiyerisha i-government departments kwakunye noomasipala. Masinikele ke ngoku egameni lenkulumbuso yephondo laseMpuma Koloni Honorable Oscar Mabuyana, sinikele obambeleyo uHonorable Xolile Nqatha ukuba azokwenza isifungo sokuba urhulumente waseMpuma Koloni uzimisele ukwenza eliphi na igxathu. If you have just joined us, we are celebrating the life and times of Utata Raymond, Dr. Raymond MHLABA, and this is the 4th annual memorial lecture that is held virtually on Microsoft Teams, as well as the Parliamentary Channel and Bay TV, Pumakapa TV, and 22 community radio stations. Thank you for joining us. Honorable Nqatha, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Honorable Program Director, Honorable Gomonye. As you indicated that I've been delegated by the Honorable Premier to convey the provincial government's commitment as we mark this occasion. Honorable Speaker, honorable members of the provincial legislature, and our guest for today, the MHLABA family. Firstly, Ms Modise for delivering a very insightful and thought-provoking lecture about the life and times of the late Dr. Raymond MHLABA. Indeed, your lecture, Honorable Modise, has lived up to the standard we expected when we announced in our SOPA that we would honor the centenary of Omray this year. Amazwi athethileyo mahle, acwengile, avakele kwaye andithandi ukuwagxoba. Okwam ukuwamkela njengesikhumbuzo sendlela ekufuneka sihambile singurhulumente namahlakani ethu ukuze sifezekise umsebenzi owaqalwa ngu-Omray emva konyulo luka-1994. Ingakumbi umsebenzi and the commitment we want to make in honor of Omray and the constitution of our country is to continue to build a public administration that practices good governance, a public administration that accounts for its actions and inactions, and a public administration that meets and exceeds the expectations of delivering services to our people. That is why in our priorities for this term, we committed to build a capable, ethical, developmental state as a basis of the public service we want. As I like to quote former President Thabo Mbeki when he said, I quote, "Public service that is impatient with pen pushers, thieves intent on self-enrichment, and bureaucrats who ignore the vision of Matubele," close quote. All of the problems we see in our province of lethargy in implementing projects that are meant to benefit our communities of poor customer services in government service points and the endemic and systemic corruption as a result of a public administration that has been weakened to the core over a period of time. We are now rebuilding and repurposing our public administration to deliver on the mandate we're given by our people in the 2019 general elections. At the center of this rebuilding and repurposing phase is the entrenchment of transparency in the critical terrain of public sector procurement. This is a terrain we are using to accelerate development of our province and to unapologetically transform our economy by giving opportunities to previously disadvantaged people. We are therefore lifting the veil of secrecy on the companies that do business with government because the business sector itself has asked for transparency. The business sector has at times even alleged that the equitable share of our province benefit companies that are outside our province and thereby creating jobs outside our province. By public businesses that have benefited from government contracts, we believe the business sector will now have a clear empirical data that supports our stated agenda of affirming local companies as they are the creators of jobs in our province. Secondly, the public who have raised genuine concerns about government officials and public representatives who are enriching themselves from government contract. This matter, whether real, it doesn't matter whether it is real or perceived. It erodes public trust in government. And
Honorable Ngata, apologies for the break in transmission. Honorable Ngata, Honorable Ngata, could you pause a little bit?
Hello, time is finished.
No, it's not the time, Honorable.
You are breaking, Honorable Chair, I didn't hear you.
You are the one that's breaking, Honorable Ngata, and I was interrupting you to indicate that and humbly request you to find a better connectivity.
What is the problem? It's my network, but my network...
Okay, please continue. Hopefully you'd sound much better now.
Am I better?
Yes, you can continue. Thank you.
Okay. Now I had to take off the speech now. I was trying to fix this. As I said, Honorable Chair, that the narrative that attaches the word corruption to the public sector manifests and the fancy word collusion to private sector is hypocritical. Corruption is corruption, whether it relates to bread price fixing in the private sector or PPE in the price inflation in the public sector. Both these crimes affect the vulnerable people of our society. We cannot therefore have good price fixers in the private sector getting away with fines and their counterparts in the public sector procurement space getting jail time. The punishment in both instances must equally fit the crime, and the punishment should be a long jail time and seizure of assets to offenders in both instances. We are particularly pleased and commend the work done by law enforcement agencies in the past few weeks. They have our full support as this send a clear message to all that we want to stop corruption once and for all. As I conclude, Honorable Speaker, one of the most important developments that I've seen during the past 7 months of our battle against COVID-19, which we must maintain to ensure accountability and delivery of services, has been the resuscitation of activism and collaboration between government and various stakeholders. The social distance we allowed between government and various stakeholders has delayed progress in the development of our province and led to a number of social ills to take root in our society, including maladministration. We owe it to the memory of Omray to strengthen the collaborative efforts we established during the COVID-19 with various stakeholders to drive a socio-economic development in our province, particularly in the local sphere of government. The provincial government will also work closely with the Raymond MHLABA and Dideka Foundation to keep the memory of Omray alive, so that generations to come can know that a colossal by the name of Dr. Raymond MHLABA once lived among us and fought for liberation. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Thank you very much, Honorable Ngata. We we truly apologize for the break in transmission. It may be because Honorable Ngata was requested at a later stage and was not in a perfect position for the connectivity.
Exactly, Honorable. My apologies as well.
Yeah, we truly apologize for that. And for the background that he utilized, it's a bit different to ours and the rest of the speakers. And for that as well, I sincerely apologize. We'll fix it next time. Accept my apologies. I didn't warn him earlier on that he should have a certain background. So apologies once again. These are the commitments that have been made by the provincial government of the Eastern Cape, that we will continuously fight corruption. We will continuously do better in terms of bringing about the services that are needed by the communities of this province. And this reminded me of the day we were sworn in front of the judge, where we took an oath and an affirmation that we will endeavor to do our best to serve and be the servants of the people of this province. And here in today, Honorable Ngata was just affirming that that we will continuously endeavor to do better and change the lives of the people. Ngoku siyahamba ke njengoba nditshintsha nolwimi olu sibheke ekhaya kwaNondyebo. Kukhona indawana ke pha endithanda undwendwela kuyo, khona u-KFC pha, kodwa ndimthanda ncam u-KFC pha eBhofolo edolophini. Khona uChamps ngapha ngase-left, ndithanda ke mna kuthenga phaa kwaChamps. Kodwa ke ngaphambi kokuba abantu baseBhofolo bazikhethele namhlanje uba bazawutya i-beef or i-chicken, mandicele uba u-Honorable Duba athathe nje umzuzu emnye atshayelele indlela ilungu lefemeli utata uWellington Ngodwane. Kodwa uba ngabana niyabona apha eBhofolo ukuba iimbiza ziyatsha, nileqa into yobana utata uNgodwane athethe egameni lefemeli, ndinganikela loo mzuzu uba kwenziwe njalo. Enkosi kakhulu ke tata uNgodwane, over to you, uthethela ilungu ifemeli.
All right, thank you, Program Director. I will greet the way other people that have before me greeted. All protocol observed. We were here in February celebrating the 100 years of Ray. We were all happy. Little did we know that there is COVID-19 that was coming to disrupt us and our families. It is with regret to inform that Ray's son, Untitled Chapter, passed on in June. He was followed by other 5 members, including Mr. Ngodwane, who was working as a liaison officer between family and municipality for the foundation. May their dearest souls rest in peace and rise to glory. Asinamzumiyo apha singamandwendwe kweli lizwe. Efile nje usathetha. His father Mkokozeli was a policeman and named him Pakamisi, not knowing that he was planting a seed to him, that one day he will be amongst the people who lifted up the country from the dust of apartheid. In 1943, he married his first wife, Joyce, who was unfortunately killed by a car accident in 1960. They had 3 kids, Ukeka, Nomalungelo, and Jonginchaba. In 1982, he was transferred to Portsmouth prison from Robben Island. He did something that was not in the history books, to marry while he was a prisoner. In 1986, he married Diteka, and their kids are on my way to Mpilo and Nikiwe. He instructed my father, Umsiwa, to welcome his wife at his home at Mazoka. Wakiswa Utsiki, Bamtia, Osisnomatokazi, Okokbang, Gunomelumzi. Ray was a loving father. He loved his family and in turn was loved and respected by his children. He was the father of the old school. Little negotiations he will allow, but more instructions and directions he would give. When he was in prison, he instructed my father to see to it that his son Mpilo has undergone initiation school at Mazoga. Mpilo was an umkweta here, and Siteti and myself have been looking after him in the field for food, water, and other stuff. Sisnomhle doing the cooking, and Ombre was certified. He loved his son-in-law. He would call him Zoli, Upi, I want you to do this and that. In 1989, he was released from prison. I still remember the Sunday we visited him as a family from Mazoga when Dixie called her to come. He took about 15 minutes to come out, to appear from the room. And he was standing while we were chatting, and thereafter released us. You could see that the man is busy, or the man was busy. He visited the place of his birth many times and was welcomed by the communities around Fort Beaufort. And and one stage, he was given a present by the Mazoga community, and it was given to him by Mangiela, Mrs. Petros, the late Mrs. Petros. At one stage, he gave me money to arrange a mini celebration at his home, which was also attended by people from PE. Jana Kwaya was there as he was their father. In May 1994, he was elected as the first premier of the Eastern Cape, and we deceived ourselves as family. Ukuba yeke sacho sadla kanti intoni asivumisanga, as he was not in favor of nepotism. I used to visit them in Bishop. Dixie would take me around the house, introducing me to the workers, talking and talking. You school mntanam, abafazi basebhayi would ask me, bekutheni Dideka uzuthathe ibanjwa, bathini ngoku ndiyi-first lady, ebedla ngokutsho kuDixie. In 1997, he became a high commissioner in Uganda and ambassador in Burundi and Rwanda. Ombre suffered cancer of the liver and died on the 20th February 2005 and was buried on the 27th of February 2005. My father and I used to visit him in Summerstrand. When he was sick, he would told us that his spirit is healthy while the body was yielding. In January 2005 visit, he told us that he had two wives, that is Dideka and the ANC. So as a family, we must listen to them when he died. He emphasized that he be buried by the Anglican Church, as his wife wayengumtopia oBishop Mjekula soloko bephaya, so wayesoyikisela uba uthathwe ngabe umzimba wakhe. But they were there to comfort uDixie, no Bishop Nopece bebonakala. But the ANC refused uBishop Nopece to deliver a sermon. He was only allowed to conduct funeral service at the graveyard with the soldiers. In conclusion, we as the family were very delighted and delightful for the recognition he received from the government and the organization. That one of a stalwart member of the ANC and SACP, that one of the Isitwalandwe Medal in 1992, Moses Kotane Award 2002, Raymond MHLABA Local Municipality, R30 Street in Bloemfontein named after him. There are ANC branches named after him in Mpumalanga, Nkangala, Tembisile, Ward 11 in Verena. To the mayor of Raymond, would like to remind him that we as family and the community of Mazoga at large have been listening to you, sir, and others who now we want to see things happening in this community. If Ray could come out of the grave, would he be happy to see his place of birth the way it is? Mr. Mayor, there is a Raymond MHLABA Foundation, which is equal to other foundations of political organizations, which must be used and be respected for the dissemination of the information to the family. Hayi osifuna ukukhe sizonyathela apha kwa-Omray kuziwe kusisihlehla yedwa. Ukunyathela these days has a deeper meaning. To the ANC, respect the efforts of our fathers and grandfathers and the blood of the comrades who fell for the freedom. To my family, let us join hands and keep the legacy of peace and reconciliation left by our departed relatives. God bless Africa. Amen.
Sound MEC, please. Sound MEC.
Oh, siyabulela kakhulu Tata Ngotwana, ndiyabona ilanga selitshonile. Program director ubethe kanene ngokuzawusayina in abantu, ndiyaqonda ke sesiqhuba lo mcimbi wokusayina in abantu ngongaqondi. Enkosi kakhulu tatam, siyabulela usibalisele kamandi kakhulu. Kuyacaca uba uTata Raymond MHLABA was very romantic. Amadoda namhlanje angafunda one or two things phaa kuye. Wawuke wayivaphi kudala yayingekho fashionable le nto yotshatele Robben Island. So siyabulela kakhulu uba usibonakalisele ukuba ube ngumntu obenjani efemelini. Masingabi sachitha ixesha ke kuba ngenxeni yamaxesha besifanele uba sigqibe ngentsimbi yesixhenxe. Ngoku mandinikezele ku-Honourable Executive Mayor of Amathole District Municipality, uCouncillor Khanyile Maneli ukuba asenzele amazombulelo. Ndizawubuya ke mna ke shortly emva kwakhe ndizocacisa ukuba iindwendwe zihlala kweliphi icala. Enkosi kakhulu.
Inkosi, thank you very much, Program Director. Sithetha nani siphantsi kweentaba zaseNkongobe, apho kanye uOmray asuka khona, nalapho kwazalwa khona inkokheli eyaziwayo, apho ndithemba le nto uba uOmray wayefunde kuJongintaba. Mandibulise ke kuni nonke abantu balapha, ndibulise ngokukhethekileyo kusapho lakwaOmray, ngoba likwazi uba lihlale nathi apha. Kubanda kakhulu kule area sikuyo, sekubanda kakhulu ngoku. Le commitment bayenzileyo into yoba bahlale nathi kude kubethe eli xesha ibonakalisa ukuba le commitment bayincanca egazini embeleni likatata uOmray ukuba abakhange basishiye apho kwalo msitho ungekapheli. For that kule family siyabulela kakhulu. Sibulele kakhulu also kuBishop Mbethe for inviting the Lord to provide guidance where proceedings are this evening. Sibulele also Honourable Thandi Modise for defining life ka-Comrade Omray ngendlela weyiyo kwenzela uba siyazi uba uOmray real indeed waye-icon, a stalwart ebesi-prepared uba sizelwele inkululeko nokuba sekukubi kubo. Sibulise kwakhona, sibulele kwimbali esiyinikweyo by the ambassador from Uganda, etracisa i-relationship between Uganda and South Africa, nendlela uOmray attempted to forge that relationship yase-Uganda and South Africa. Also siphinde sibulele i-institutions ezizilandelayo, Tibet College, ne-South African Council of Churches, and House of Provincial Leadership, for their commitment that they have made in terms of accountability and good governance. Nethemba uba xa sinezo institutions that support the governance in South Africa. Sizawukwazi uba sibe nokurhulumente ojongiweyo kuphela olurhwaphilize lungaka lulantweni. Sibulele ke ngoku wonke umuntu owenze into yoba lo msebenzi kaOmbrey namhlanje ube uphumelele nokuba kuyabanda sithi mazene thole wonke emntwini obelapha sithi siyabulela. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Nkosi kakhulu Sodolophu. If you've just joined us, uxolo siyaphuma ngoku. Besinencoko ngotata uRaymond Mhlaba owayenkulumbuso yokuqala apha ephondweni laseMpuma Koloni. Senibulelwe ke bethunana nonke, but from our side, from the anchor point, from our live studios, uMagadebe, umthimkhulu, uNdlebentle zombini uBhungane, Mashwabati, uyabulela kakhulu. You've been a great audience. We were just over by 20 minutes. Sibulela kakhulu. The audience here was awesome. It was befitting of the character katatu Ombrey. Siyabulela kakhulu. Good night and God bless. Thank you so much.
My God. Malbongwe.
Ewe Bhungane.
Asikafuni ukugoduka.
Sinjalo ke. Hayi kusemnandi apha.
Godkani Madlamini. Godkani Madlamini.
Asifuna ugoduka mphathisi. Asigoduki thina silala khona la. Asindawo wo. Good night, Makombi.
Good night.